right. Hello and welcome. This is Movie 3, Lecture 5 of the Star Wars prequel trilogy. And we are going to, this is where Anakin turns evil, right? This is the moment. This is the decision. This is the decision that each of us has every single day, and also in the macro scale. And yes, also in the micro scale. This happens to us every single day. And, we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out. We're going to figure out what it is that turns Anakin to the dark side and, why it's realistic and why this happens to you every single day. Why we always, make mistakes. And we'll say, are the slave to our own impulses, culture, people around us. It's everywhere. So, this is where it starts. It starts with this idea. We are at war. This is the Clone Wars. We are at war. And I said this in the beginning. I want to really bring attention to this. In the first movie, they said this was the opening. Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republics due to some trade disputes, due to some, problems, some petty trade problems, and the systematization, I'm not even going to try, of trade routes. And it's like, you had no idea what was coming. And, that shows the development of Anakin. That shows the development of the individual. It's like, that's a good idea. When Anakin was a baby, or when Anakin was a child in that case, which was movie 1, it's like he probably thought everything was the biggest problem that's ever existed. But now, we're at war. There's a real problem, and, you could say both sides are gearing up now, right? That's really what's going to end up happening. What's the representation of the Clone Wars? Very simple. It's like, Anakin, he's reaching the age of maturity, right? He's reaching the age of, making a decision as to who he wants to be. And we could say evil is geared up, and so is the good side. It's the same idea in Harry Potter. It's like Voldemort's super weak in the beginning because Harry was only 11, but then by the time Harry turns to 17, which is essentially the same age as Anakin here, it's like, that's where you got to choose. That's where Voldemort is at his strongest, you're at your strongest, and you go to war. You go and do it. There's actually a really good idea here. It's the idea in Beauty and the Beast. Actually, I thought the Beauty and the Beast was done really, really well with this. There's this idea of the rose, and by the time that the Beast turns 21, he first of all, he was cursed and he was transformed into a beast, and then by the time he turns 21, all the petals on the roses will fall, and he will stay a beast forever. And these are all the same ideas. It's like by the time that you reach maturity, by the time that you reach the point where you kind of, you're knowledgeable and self-conscious enough to understand that there is suffering in the world, and you also, haven't really established that a way of coping with it yet. That's a good way of putting it. There's suffering in the world and you don't know how to bear it. You don't know how to take it. Some people, like Anakin did in the last movie, he said, I don't want to deal with it. He said, I'm fine staying an animal. I'm fine just rejecting my self-consciousness, which again is something we do every single day. But there are different solutions, right? There's the Jesus solution, right? Jesus was the person who sacrificed himself and took all the suffering of the world upon himself and died upon the cross. That's the meaning of that. And that's the hero, right? That's the hero archetype. It's you take the suffering, you take the evil, and you conquer it, and you handle it. You don't, cower to it. So this is what we have right here. We have the indecisive individual. This is the first piece. It's like every single thing in this world is revolving around Anakin because, first of all, it's his life, it's his world, and it's his prophecy, right? It's his job to bring balance to the Force. It's his job to destroy the Sith, and that's exactly what I mean when I say bear the suffering of the world. I mean, confront the most evil of all realities. Confront the greatest suffering that exists within you. And, Anakin's sitting here, and it's the beginning of the movie, and he says, I feel lost. I feel lost. I don't know who I am. And well, there's a good case to be made that that is what we are at all times. At all times, especially when we're, in maturity, going into college, doing all these things. But at all times, we're lost, right? We're fragile, we're indecisive, and, well, we don't have a good representation of who we are. This is just the unfortunate reality of humans. Because you look at it and you ask the question, why do we have people, right? Like, why do I make friends with you and why do you make friends with me? It's very simple. It's like, you have flaws that you don't see, and I have flaws that I don't see. And if you're a good friend, or if you're a good family member, or if you're a good person, you're going to tell me my flaws. You're going to say, hey, Nick, you were being annoying before. You were being really, really annoying. And I'm probably not even gonna realize. I'm gonna be like, what? I was being annoying? Really? But that's the idea. You could say, oh yeah, maybe I say something dumb. It's like, it's your point, it's your job to call me out for saying something dumb because, well, that's what makes me conscious. That's what makes me, well, an individual. That's what makes me strong. And the reality is that I can't develop my own personality on myself. I just can't do it, right? I just can't do it by myself. I need other people to do it. And, well, it's not as simple as just saying, yeah, I know who I am. I know exactly who I am. It's not that simple. And another problem with individuals, the indecisive individual, is that we have no idea what makes us happy. Always. This is the psychological literature on this is very, very clear. It's like, we have no idea what's going to make us happy. There's a great experiment where a bunch of experimenters gave like 4 different groups different levels of money, and they gave them $5 and $10, and then they either told them to spend it on themselves or spend it on other people. And they asked them, which one do you think is going to make you the happiest? Right? Out of all 4 groups, which one do you think is going to make you the happiest? And they were completely wrong. Completely wrong. You predict what's going to make you happy, and well, you end up not happy, right? And that's the fundamental archetype of getting everything that you ever wanted and then realizing that it doesn't make you as happy as you thought it would be, right? Getting all the money in the world. You spend your entire 20s just trying to grind to get money, and you just realize it's not that exciting, right? I talked to my dad about this. He watched the movie Soul, and in the movie Soul, that was the archetype. He said the guy got everything he ever wanted, and he's like, well, what's next? What is there? What is there to do? And he said, yeah, like in my 20s, I relate to that. I relate to that very strongly. I got a successful job and did very well, and kudos to him. But at the same time, he's like, well, I realized that there's more to life after that. And I realized that even getting the money, the thing that I thought would make me happy, the thing that I thought would get rid of my pain is, well, it's not it. That's just not it. So that's the problem with humans, fundamentally. We don't know who we are, and, well, we don't know what makes us happy, and we don't know what we like. It's like, well, how do we solve that problem? Because, well, you need something to fill in the gaps. And this gets into the gaps, right? The gaps are Palpatine and the Jedis, right? The gaps are, well, I don't really know who I am, but I need some sort of structure. I need something that I'm going to be, well, supported by. You look at something like school, you look at something like religious institutions, government institutions, ideals, principles, morals, all of these things that we do, they take our world and they simplify it. And think of it this way, right? I have a moral rule that I don't eat dairy, right? I don't eat dairy. So I was just at the grocery store just now, and there was food that was tempting me because the food is at the grocery store is very, very good, and I really don't want to eat it. So, but there was some food there that was dairy, and well, I already created a moral rule. I came into the store with a rule saying I am not going to eat dairy. All the dairy stuff like M&Ms, Twix, all that with milk chocolate, it was an automatic no. It made my life so much easier. It made my life so much more simple. Since I have established rule, every time I see, let's say something that resembles the thing that goes against my rule, it doesn't even affect me anymore. It's just an unconscious habit that we do. And We could say, for me, that's something like establishing a structure and filling in the gaps. And then you could take that even further and say, well, what is the purpose of a religious institution? It says, well, we have this gap of, first of all, meaning, and also this, we'll say, problem of, well, what do we do after we die? And we'll say 15 other problems, existential problems that we haven't been able to solve. And what does a religious structure do? It fills in the gaps. And, well, if we knew ourselves completely, then we would be gods. If we knew ourselves completely, then, well, there'd be no purpose of doing anything, because every single thing that you do, you learn more about yourself, and it's exciting, it's invigorating. You know, you go to a therapy session, and the whole purpose of therapy is, well, you don't know who you are, and you don't know why what's going wrong is going wrong, and then you figure it out, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. Like, I just learned something about myself, even though I'm myself. Right? Even though I am here and I feel like I know myself, we really have no idea. So you look at someone like Palpatine, and well, we'll call him problem number one, right? And when I say problem number one, I simply mean the things that are swaying Anakin towards the dark side, and this is why I'll explain it. So the first thing that happens is, well, I'll give you the scene first. So here's the scene. So you have, it's the beginning of movie 3, and Anakin is conquering the villain in movie 2, right? That's what he's doing. So the villain in movie 2 was Count Dooku, and well, we start off this movie with Anakin, we'll say, defeating Count Dooku. So it's like, okay, he's gotten stronger, and he's, well, able to do the things that he wasn't able to do in the previous movie. It's like, okay, that's a good start. But now he has the opportunity to kill Count Dooku. He has the opportunity. And the big Jedi rule is that you don't kill somebody who's defenseless without a fair trial, right? The whole thing is Count Dooku, since he's incredibly defenseless, he should have a trial. And when I say that, I say this is the Jedi structure. This is the moral principle. Just like my dairy principle, it's the same idea. It's like, okay, Anakin has bought in to the Jedi principle. He's bought into the structure. And what does Palpatine do? Even in his, we'll say, good form, in the form in which he looks like he's not the devil, he says, kill him. He says, kill him. And, well, what does that mean, right? What does that mean? He's saying, sacrifice your principles. Principles themselves aren't that important. Sacrifice the thing that you hold in your identity, right? This is why we form identities in the first place. It's like, you know, you look at someone who says, I'm a father, right? When you say you're a father, there's a whole set of things that come with that, right? It sort of means, let's say, you're hopefully responsible, right? And you also are able to take care of other people, and you also have all these set of characteristics that go with you. And it's the same idea of, is if you say, I'm a writer, right? If I say I'm a writer, then there's a certain lifestyle that's attached to that, and there's a certain way of living that's attached to that. And Palpatine says, get rid of that. Get rid of that structure. Get rid of that fundamental thing that makes you you. And Anakin does it. And this is the idea of, this is the reason why we fear Palpatine. And this is why Palpatine's a problem. He says, it's only natural. He cut off your arm and you wanted revenge. And, well, he just gives a justification for it. But the real question is, why does Anakin cower his principles to the authority figure? Right? Why does he do that? And, well, what does that mean? Right? What does that mean? And first of all, I just wanted to give maybe the craziest explanation as to why we do this all the time and how much of a damn effect it has on our lives. So this thing right here is the representation of the Milgram experiment. The Milgram experiment was done in the 1960s. And very simply, it showed that if you put an authority in the room, an authority figure in the room, a strong authority figure, which in this case would be an experimenter, 2/3 of people will commit some of the worst atrocities that you could possibly ever imagine. So in this Milgram experiment, 2/3 of people were, well, if you want more on it, you could look it up, but 2/3 of people did, well, essentially killed somebody, or thought that they did a deed in which they thought they were killing somebody. And they did it anyways because, well, an authority figure was in the room. They conformed. They cowered down to the pressure of the authority figure. And you ask the question, we ask this question, well, all the time. You say, could Darth Vader be me? And clearly the answer is yes. Actually, they replicated this study about 50 years later, sometime in the 2010s, and they got almost the exact same results. 2/3 of people will commit the worst atrocities ever. Ordinary people will commit the worst atrocities ever just because they conform, just because there's an authority figure in the room. Let's say that's the representation of a parent, a political system, or the tyrannical culture that exists in our world, which exists in every world. No matter what, there's always going to be a tyrannical culture. So, and you could take that, you could extract it out, and you could say, wait a second, and this was the idea that I brought up before in Ordinary Men. It's like, okay, could you have been a Nazi? Could you have been a Nazi? And you say, no, I definitely wouldn't be a Nazi, but clearly 2/3 of people are willing to do something that is atrocious. And, well, you ask the question, are the people who are Nazis, there's one unfortunate reality about them. They're also human. They are human too, and so are you. And, well, you're not so different from them after all. Right? Maybe there's more alike within you and within them than you think. And, well, that's the argument. Some people would say, yes, we are products of our environment, and that's it. So the question is, if you were born, I actually came to this conclusion with my friend. I said, if I was born in the body of Kim Jong-un, if I was born with that body, with all the power in the world, being completely indoctrinated by his parents, his culture, and all that stuff, and really having no opportunity to think differently, me and my friend both came to the conclusion. We said, we most likely would be Kim Jong-un. We most likely would be, doing the things that Kim Jong-un is doing because, well, the pressure, the system, the strength that's coming down on him is just too damn strong. And, well, it really gives you sympathy. It really makes you believe. You're like, wait a second, maybe Kim Jong-un is also human, and he's just a product of his environment like everyone else. And if we were born in a different spot, maybe we would also be in the same exact position. So this is Palpatine, and you look at Palpatine, you could think of him as the representation of everything, right? Everything that is, well, domineering on you. So there are many different things. It could be your parents, it could be your culture, it could be your governmental system, right? Or it could be your biology. You think about it, right? You're struggling with, well, you ask the question, what is the default position for humans in our society, right? The default position for humans, is it to be, as a person over 20, is it to be overweight or normal weight or underweight? What is the norm? What is the default, right? The answer is 2/3 of America are overweight. 2/3 of Americans over 20 are overweight. So you imagine, when you come out of that womb, there's a 2/3 chance that you're going to be overweight. It's like, maybe, just maybe, the strength of your, let's say, biology, along with the strength of advertising, along with we'll go with those two. So we'll go with those two. The strength of those two things are so damn overwhelming that it's actually the default that you will, we'll say, fall to your biological impulses. And the answer is, well, you have to, let's say, turn the dark side, right? Falling to the dark side is actually the default. It's the actual default position because the pressures are so damn hard. And you can see this across almost all domains. 85% of people hate their jobs. I think I already said that. That's a cultural influence, right? Why do people choose to be accountants? Why do people choose to be investment bankers? Why do people choose to be lawyers, doctors, even if they hate it? And I'm not saying all people hate it, but many of them do. And well, the answer is because their culture there's so much pressure from the culture. 85% of people. That means that you come out of the womb and you're an anomaly if you like your job, if you choose something that you actually like. It's like, how powerful, therefore, is money? How powerful is money? That's Palpatine. That's a representation of Palpatine. Another one, again, 50% of marriages fail. And within marriages, 50% of partners cheat on each other. 56% of men cheat on wives, and 49% of wives cheat on husbands. It's like, again, what is the default position? We like to think, oh yes, the default position is you get married and you live forever after and everything's going great. It's like, no. The default position is that you fail. The default position is that, well, you're going to either cheat on your partner or just get divorced for some other reason. And, well, you must overcome that. You must conquer that. You must, we'll say, develop an individual will to defeat the default status. Default, we'll say, biological urge to, in this case, cheat. And it's almost as if we have it backwards. I think that's a good way of saying it. It's like, well, we have it backwards. It's like we think that the light side is the side of the Jedis is the side in which we naturally flow to, and people turn to the dark side. It's like, no. Maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe we're meant to be in the dark side, and you have to develop your own individual self. You have to develop your own individual will to become a human, right? To become a human, to get out of this, we'll say, animalistic state, right? Because that's really what we're talking about. We're saying conformity, right? In the Milgram experiment, like that's what animals do, right? Wolves hunt in packs and they just kind of follow each other. You have biological urges, right? That's a caveman instinct. Eating too much. That's a caveman instinct. Same for smoking. Same for procrastination. It's all the same thing. It's a caveman instinct. It's a hunter instinct, and falling to, we'll say, the domineering pressure of money in terms of career. It's like most likely. I actually have a great story. I was talking to my friend, and he goes, up until about the age of 18, I was sure I was going to be an investment banker. I wanted to, we'll say, get to the top of the dominance hierarchy. I wanted to be the best of all investment bankers. And then I realized, I'm like, wait a second. Why did I even think that? What is the reason that I did that? And then he chose something that he loved. And the quote that I told him, and I think this is so meaningful. It changed the way I looked at the world. I said, the problem with being in the rat race is that at the end of the day, you're still a rat. Right? Because whenever you decide to, let's say, go up the cultural ladder or go up the corporate ladder or, try to attain these, we'll say, societally enforced goals, you're still being determined by your animalistic impulses to conform. You still never developed your own individual self, and you still never determined what you actually liked. And it's because you cowered to Palpatine. It's because you cowered to the external pressure, and well, that's tough, right? That's a tough reality to come to. So, problem number 2, doubt, and this connects to Palpatine, but it's a completely separate problem. Well, we could say Palpatine's kind of messing with him. So what Anakin's feeling right now is that he doubts. It's not that he... Well, that's a good way of looking at it. So you have maybe the system of greed, or the system of biological urges, social, political conformity, all of these things, Palpatine, right, is super strong. And well, the problem with the Jedis is that they're not strong enough, right? They're not strong enough. They have all these problems that exist, and they don't treat Anakin, we'll say, perfectly. They don't, which is pretty true. Palpatine says, don't you wonder why they don't make you a Jedi Master, right? Trying to cast that little doubt inside of him. He says, they know your power will be too strong to control. Another thing. And he's also, giving him this little father figure type of idea. He said, I've said it many times, you're the most gifted Jedi I've ever met, Anakin. And he says, you are the best choice. He says this later when, this was when they sent Obi-Wan to go and fight General Grievous, and Anakin wanted to go, and Palpatine says, you are the best choice by far, Anakin. I thought you should have gone, right? So what he's really doing is he's casting doubt in the old system, in the good system. We'll say something resembling following your heart, or something resembling doing the right thing, something resembling morals. And, I'll explain to you the problem with this. I think this is a fundamental idea, and this is why most people turn to the dark side. This is why it's so damn difficult to, we'll say, keep a strong life. Keep a strong life. It's like, not only if you want to eat healthy, it's like you don't have to eat healthy for today. You don't have to eat healthy for a year. You have to eat healthy for the rest of your life. And if you fail anywhere along there, then you turn to the dark side, right? In a metaphorical sense. And it's like, that's hard. That's hard. And here's one of the reasons why that's hard. One of those reasons we could say is doubt, right? One of the problems, we'll stick with the example of health. One of the problems is, what is healthy, right? What is healthy? Are French fries healthy? Okay, we could say maybe those are unhealthy. What about bread? Is bread unhealthy? Because there's a lot of research that says carbs are bad, but then there's also a lot of research that says carbs are good. It's like, I don't know, right? What about corn? What about, you name it? It's like, lo mein. There are so many foods that we're like, I don't really know. And here's the problem with that. And this is the main problem. And I was looking for the solution, and I found it in Aladdin, in the movie Aladdin. It's just as mythological as Star Wars. So I wanted to explain what happens to Aladdin, and I'll really explain to you why doubt is so important, or so crucial in this case. So what happens with Aladdin is that, he decides to essentially go on a hero's journey. He goes into this thing called the Cave of Wonders, right? And this is where, if you've seen the Aladdin story, this is where he goes into the cave and finds the magic carpet and the genie, right? So he goes into this cave, and you can see right here at the top, right up here. So first of all, he's standing at the bottom left, and he's got to go to this. He's got to go across this we'll say lake, and then get to the top. And at the top, with this light shining down on sort of like the top of the mountain, is the lamp, right? The genie in the lamp. And we could say that this is the goal, right? This is what he's striving for. This is if we're going to the Star Wars example, this is the Jedi Order, right? This is living a moral life and being a good person, right? It's like, okay, this is the thing to strive for. What happens in the Cave of Wonders? In the Cave of Wonders, it's surrounded by gold. Everything is surrounded by gold. And it's literally, right? He's got gold after gold after gold. And remember, Aladdin's poor. So it's the thing that Aladdin wants the most. You have Abu here, who sees all these rubies and says, Abu is the monkey that goes with Aladdin. He sees all these rubies and he says, I want those. Screw the goal. Screw this one little stupid little lamp that I have to go for. Screw this stupid little Jedi Order that has these stupid little morals. I'd rather go for the gold. I'd rather get everything that I ever wanted. And so we'll stop there and we'll say, what is the archetype there? The archetype there is the reason why you have doubt and why doubt is a problem. Every time you try to do something, there are about 1,000 ways to go wrong, but there's only one way to go right. That's the problem. That's the fundamental problem. It's like, okay, you set a goal and you say you are going to get your project done and you're going to work on it for an hour. That's your goal. You say, okay, that's the thing that If you ask, what am I supposed to be doing right now? You say, it's getting my thing done for an hour, right? Finishing my project. You ask the questions, what am I not supposed to be doing? Going on my phone, going on social media, taking a walk, hanging out with my friends. There are a million different things that you could do to potentially distract you from your goal. Endless things that you can do. But there's only one good thing. There's only one right way. And, well, that's the representation of the gold. The gold is the representation of all the distractions that could potentially exist. So what happens is, Aladdin... Well, first of all, we'll say that is what Anakin... that is doubt right there. That is doubt. If you don't have a clear picture of the goal, of why the genie itself is important, or the lamp, right? Why these things are important, then it's so much easier to fall towards the distractions, right? How easy is it if you say, I want to get my project done because, well, I'm sitting between a B plus and an A minus, and I really need to get this for the A minus. It's like, okay, that's a pretty good reason, right? And you're probably going to work for it. But what happens if you say, well, I want to do this assignment and I want to get this project done for the next hour, but it really doesn't make a difference, right? There's really no reason as to why, like, I already have an A minus, and, well, if I get a good grade versus a bad grade, no matter what, I'm going to get an A minus. And, well, what you're really doing is you're muddying the goal. You're muddying the, we'll say, in that case, it's the reason behind why you should do the goal, and that's what, well, that's the Jedi Order right here. And then you're going to be more tempted towards distractions, right? That's a very self-evident idea. So what happens is Aladdin goes up and he actually says, he goes up, he looks at the lamp, he goes, really? All this for a lamp? Like, what is the purpose of this? And then his monkey, right, which is the representation of his unconscious, we could say his animal side, right? That's why it's a monkey. And he goes and he touches the rubies, right? Right here you can see he has the rubies in his eyes, right? That's all that he cares about. And what happens, right? And this is beautiful. The rubies turn into ashes. They melt. And you could say that the whole time, the distractions themselves were just, well, they were just that. They were distractions. There was no actual gold there. It was just an illusion. And, well, I'm sure you could see how that sort of plays out. Maybe you could say every single time that you are between getting your project done and spending an hour on social media, you're tempted by the devil, you could say. There's the angel on your shoulder and the devil on your shoulder. And if we're going to look at it from that perspective, and it's like, well, even if you choose the devil, even if you choose spending an hour on your phone, it's like, are you really going to enjoy it? Is it really something that makes it worth your time? And is it really something that's going to, well, bring you towards whatever success means for you, whatever goal you're going to try to achieve in? And the problem is there's 1,000 ways to go wrong and one way to go right. And you cast any sort of doubt on those goals. You cast any sort of doubt on your one way to go right. Your one hope, your one ray of hope in the entire, we'll say, world, right? And of course you're going to be more liable for distractions. So this is really what happens in the movie, right? This is really what happens to Anakin. The Jedis are corrupt. There's no doubt in that. There's no questioning, right? They want, this is a conversation between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Anakin says, they want me to spy on the Chancellor, but that's treason. And Obi-Wan says, we are at war, Anakin, right? So clearly, that's not a very good explanation. It's breaking the Jedi code. It's like, okay, they're corrupt. We know that. Obi-Wan, also, he's an inadequate teacher, right? There's a problem there. It's like Anakin doesn't even understand the culture that well. Of course he's going to have a little bit of doubt in the system. And also, they're not even going to make him a master on the council. They're not even going to let him, we'll say, manifest his talents, right? They're not going to do any of that. And of course, Palpatine is going to let him do all of that because, well, that's a good idea. The devil is whatever you want him to be. Temptation is whatever you want it to be. Distraction is whatever you want it to be because, well, you imagine that there are 1,000 distractions and one thing that you actually like. It's like, out of those 1,000 distractions, you're going to like at least 2 of them. At least 3 of them, right? Because you could say everybody has their thing, and that's the problem. It's like, Barack Obama even said this. He goes, he's a pretty well put together man, regardless of his political beliefs. He's a very well put together man. He says, I struggle with smoking, with cigarette smoking. I just, it's always on the back of my mind. And there's always this, it's my Achilles heel, essentially. But for somebody who's never smoked, that's probably not their problem. But that's the thing. It's like, it doesn't matter. The devil takes its, we'll say, formation in many forms. It's like, it doesn't matter what you are distracted by. It's just the fact that you are distracted. And, well, if you ever need any argument for why you should have a solid goal structure and really make a, plan as to what you actually want and why you should actually be an individual and why you should actually do things, it's like, that's your reason right there. So, problem number 3. Change and control, right? And by change, I mean the fact that life is always changing, and control, the fact that Anakin just wants to take control over it. And that's something that we've kind of established so far, but this is where we go deeper into it. Padme says, we're having a baby. I'm pregnant, right? And the thing about this is, this is maturity, right? This is maturity. This is him growing up. We could say that this is the, bearing of responsibility, because we could say maybe the fundamental definition of becoming an adult is when you begin to bear your own load, right? When your parents, school teachers, culture doesn't support you to a strong degree, you are holding up your own load. You are the one who's bearing the responsibility for yourself, because you imagine, I think this was in a comedy skit. They were saying, they're like, for the first 18 years of your life, you're a parasite, right? You're an absolute parasite. Other people have to be responsible for you, and they have to bear their own responsibilities as well as your responsibilities. It's like, how terrible is that? And that's what happens when you become an adult. You have to bear your responsibility. In this case, that responsibility is, we'll say, manifested or embodied in the fact that he's going to have a kid. You could just, say that you could throw any responsibility in there, right? Another one is very simple. It's like, he's going to have a kid, so therefore he's got to make money. It's like, money's also a responsibility. It's like, is that what you're going to sell yourself to the dark side for? Is, anything. Pick any responsibility. It's like, he's becoming a person now. And, he's going to have to deal with that. He has this problem of saying, because I want more, but I know I shouldn't, right? There's a... this actually relates to the idea of doubt. He's really doubting the system. He's really, actually no, it relates to this. So what he's really saying is, I want to take more control, right? I want more power. I want more things underneath my belt. And this is what he says to Padme. He says, I want more, but I know I shouldn't. This innate desire to sort of control everything. And one of the things that he wishes to control completely is Padme, right? He tries to control Padme. There's this idea within the movie, and this is in the second movie, actually. I said I'd get back to this. Attachment is forbidden, possession is forbidden. That's one of the rules of the Jedi Order. And now you could probably understand why. It's because you try to take control over things that are constantly in flux. You try to take possession over somebody when in reality they're their own person, right? This is the problem that I have with marriage, and it's a problem that many people have with marriage. I was reading Esther Perel, and she has the same idea where she says, very simply, it's like, no matter what you do in a relationship, there's always going to be, quote, the shadow of the third. There's always going to be a third person that exists in there. And the reason why there's a third person is because you always have some desire, you always have some motivation to, well, leave the relationship. And that doesn't mean in an emotional way. Partially it's a sexual meaning, right? It's just the fact that we have this natural desire to have sex with as many people as possible, both men and women. And works for men, but for men and women. And well, the question is that natural? The answer is yes. Should we suppress that? That's a debatable question. Marriage says, yes, we should suppress that. Something like every mythological story ever says we probably shouldn't suppress that if it's part of, we'll say, the natural being of humanity. And but that's an arbitrary judgment. It's an arbitrary judgment. So the problem is, right, and this is why possession is a problem, because when you get married to somebody, you say, I am taking you and only you for the rest of my life, and you are taking me and only me for the rest of your life. We are claiming each other, right? By its very nature, it is possessive. By its very nature, it's like you're mine and I'm yours. That's it. And that's as if you were a child on the playground and all the kids are playing and we're all playing in a group, and you say, I like you. You can't play with all the other kids. We're just going to play together, me and you. And no matter what, no matter how much the other kid wants to play with the other kids and how much you get bored of just playing with both of you guys together, you say, no. We made a rule. We made a commitment that we're going to be possessive over each other, that we're going to be with each other. So you can't play with the other people. You can't do it. And well, there's a 50% divorce rate, a little bit lower now, but 50% divorce rate. It's like, I think you have your evidence as to, well, why that's a problem. So here's the problem with possession. Therefore, right, the problem with possession is that you have an individual will, right? My individual will is to play with all the other kids. And yes, that is partially sexual metaphor, right? To play with all the other kids. And, well, the problem is, it's like the rules that we established in this marital contract is hampering my individual ability, right? My individual motivations, my individual self. And it's because you possessed over me. So the reason why we have something like possession is very simple. Why possession is bad, it's because you have complete control over me, and unfortunately I have complete control over you, and you can't fully express yourself. And you see that in a couple. Really, like it's well, it happens all the time, right? That's exactly what jealousy is. That's what jealousy is when we'll go with both sexes. You have one partner gets jealous about the other partner. So what do? What is the first thing that they do? They try to take control. They say, no, don't go out tonight, or I'll go with you, or something like that, because they're saying, well, I'm going to try to restrict your individual freedom. I'm going to try to restrict your individuality. And really, it's because, in a cynical way, you're my possession, right? We chose to be together. I don't want you to be yourself. So that's why, in a nutshell, possession is forbidden. Anakin becomes possessive, right? He says he's not going to become possessive, but of course he does. He says, this was before him and Padme got together in movie 2. He says, I am in agony. The thought of being with you, I can't breathe. And, well, I don't need to explain how that's possession. And he says, I will do anything that you ask. And clearly, he's too attached. He's too, he's definitely too attached. And what happens is, do I have Yoda here? No, we'll get to Yoda later, right? No, that's perfect. So Yoda says, attachment leads to jealousy, the shadow of greed that is. And when he says that, what he's really saying is, well, yes, attachment leads to jealousy, and therefore you are being greedy over that person. You are being possessive over that person. You're saying, that person is mine, and I want every single part of them, right? I don't want them to, we'll say, manifest themselves as an individual. And, well, in Yoda's definition, that's greed. That's the right idea. So what happens is, Anakin gets possession over her, right? So they end up getting together, and he gets, we'll say, his attachment is secured, and he gains possession over her, right? And obviously that's the problem that he's struggling with, and and then I'll say it in the literal representation, and then she expresses her individual will. She changes, right? She changes, and that's what he's going to have to struggle with. What he's taking possession over is he's taking possession over, we'll say, the Padme that exists in the moment. The Padme that he knows, because we explained this idea of the anima, right? He has a set anima of her. He has a set projection of what she is and what he likes in her, right? And we could say that's a representation of something like romantic, passionate love, because that's really what they're at currently. And, well, then he has this dream about her dying, right? He has this dream about her dying, and you could say that it's a literal representation of her dying, right? You could imagine that maybe she actually dies, but we should know that by now. Right? The mother died, but it's not that she actually died. It's that his image of her died. And it's the same idea with Padme. He has this image that Padme is going to die. It's like, it's not the case, right? He has the image that she's going to change in his perception of her, right? She's gonna change, right? Because she's gonna become a mother, right? So when she becomes a mother, you could say that there's the death of the passionate love, there's the death of the way that he saw her in the past, and she's gonna change into a new person. She's gonna change into a mother. She's gonna change. The relationship itself is going to change, and we could say from a symbolic perspective, that's the death of an old thing and the rebirth of a new thing. That's the idea of the rising and setting suns. It's like there's gonna be a sun setting, which is gonna be romantic love or passionate love, and well, the new thing that's rising is going to end up being, she's gonna be a mother. But he can't handle that, right? The problem is he can't handle the change, and that's what I meant when I say problem 3 is change. He says the words, he goes, I won't let this one become real. I won't let you die like my mother died on me. Right? Because when he says this one, he means the dream that he has of her dying. And what he's really saying is, well, unfortunately, he's saying that I'm going to stop change again. I'm going to double down. I'm going to say, you know what? I can't let go. I don't have this ability to let go of the people that I love, to let go of the stages of life, right? The stages of life. He couldn't let go of the stage of being a child. He couldn't let go of his mother in that case. And now he's not going to be able to let go of his adolescence, right? He's not going to be able to let go of the romantic, passionate love in which he has, and he's not ready to change and be an adult. And that's what he means when he says, I'm not going to let Padme die. He's really saying, I don't want to be an adult. I don't want to bear the responsibility of adulthood. And, well, I don't want you to change, right? I want us to live young forever, right? That's something that you see very often in the female romantic movies, right? How does Twilight end? Twilight ends with both of them become vampires and they stay young forever and live as 19-year-olds for the rest of their life. It's like, sure, that's a fantasy. Like, that's great. But unfortunately, there's going to be a flux. We're going to have to go through different stages of life. And, well, when one part of you dies, the next part is going to grow. When the adolescent Anakin dies, that rises the adult Anakin, the more mature, more responsible Anakin. Only if he chooses to bear that pain, if he chooses to bear the transitional process between the two stages, and clearly he's not okay with that. And Well, that's the problem. Yoda says the fear of loss is a path to the dark side. And again, it's not death. It's the fear of change. It's the fear of flux. And here's another interpretation of it. The fear of developing your individual self, right? Because that's what we established before. We established in the last lecture that his mom was the representation of the known world. She made all the decisions for him. And then he projected that image upon Padme. So it's like he always knows he's a, we'll say, non-independent person who's never really made his own decisions before. And it hurts. It sucks. It's terrible to become your own individual self. To go through, let's say, the psychological growing pains of, well, realizing that you have no idea who you are and no idea what you want, and, well, having to make decisions for yourself kind of sucks. It's like, imagine that you had a parent who cleaned your room for you every single day, or did your laundry, or made your bed, or whatever, made food for you, clothed you, bought all your stuff, did everything for you, took out the trash. It's like, well, why didn't you do it yourself? Because it's hard. Because responsibility itself is freaking hard. And adulting is hard. And that in this case is change. That in this case is loss. And you're going to have to develop yourself to actually start developing some sort of responsibilities. It's not like you could just wake up tomorrow and take out the trash every day. You're going to forget, and it's going to be hard. And God, imagine expanding that to the idea of thinking for yourself in everything and establishing yourself in a career. And it's like, God, it's like that's not easy. And no wonder why we fear change. No wonder why we fear becoming an individual. And no wonder why we are products of our environment. No wonder why many of us choose not to, well, think for ourselves. One of the things that I think is so important, it's just so important. It's like Anakin turns to the dark side. And we could look down upon that. But one thing that we need to understand is that there's a reason why people turn to the dark side. It's not irrationality. It's not somebody being stupid. It's not somebody just giving up on life, right? You could take this to the archetypal end and say that it's the person who becomes super resentful and hates the world and maybe shoots up a school or whatever. But it's not that. It's that average everyday people turn to the dark side every single day, and there's a strong justification for it. It's not trivial. It's not something that you could just overcome. It's like this is the most difficult process ever of developing, well, who you are and your individual self. It's like maybe there's actually a justification for why people do this. So, in sum, problem number 1 is that the pressures on you are too damn strong. It's like, fair enough. That's a pretty good, that's maybe the biggest problem. Problem number 2, let's put these ideas together, right? Problem number 2 is that, well, the good side, right, the thing that's, we'll say, pushing you in the right direction isn't strong enough, right? There are problems with it. So problem number 1 was that, well, the bad side is too strong. And problem number 2 is that the good side isn't strong enough. You look at the power distribution. It's like Palpatine is the Emperor. And he's also the Sith. He's the head of both parties. And then you have someone like the Jedis, who are just a council that doesn't really have any political power. It's like, you take the same idea, right? You look at someone like Jeffrey Epstein. It's like, he had all the money in the world. Okay? No matter how immorally he did it, he had all the money in the world, all the pleasures in the world. And it's like, at least there's a case to do that. Like, at least, even though it's wrong, it's like, even there's some justification to do that. Here's another one, We're in the COVID era right now, and, I watch all these students. I would say about 95% of students cheat. 95%. Not even... God. Maybe even more than that. It's like, okay, COVID's happening. Shut down. You could say the external pressures, the representation of Palpatine is that, first of all, the external pressures are get good grades, right? Because think about it, okay? To be, well, we'll say adequate, right? Or to be up to most people's standards, you need to get a 90%. 90% correct. That's not a trivial thing. Also, you have your parents who want to do it. Also, it's a large financial investment if you're going to college especially. And also, we could say that, well, that's what your culture wants, right? Your culture wants you to be a good student. Also, friendships, all of these things rely on you being a good student. It's like you have all these external pressures. Then also, you have problem number 2. You have something like doubt. It's like, why do I even need to learn this information anyways? All right, that's the fundamental question of why do people take calculus? It's actually a great question, right? It's a great question, and it deserves some sort of answers. Wait, we're on problem 2 here. It deserves some sort of answers, and, well, if you don't have those answers, which most people don't, then you have doubt in why you should actually be a good person in the first place. And what do? Everybody cheats. Everybody cheats. Come on, imagine you're in an online test, you're in an online exam, and there's no proctoring for anything. It's like, what is stopping you from literally taking that one little step into the dark side, which is something like looking it up on Google? At the sacrifice of your morals. Of course, and I think we know that. We know that cheating is the dark side. We know that it's, well, I think it's self-evident. I don't really feel the need to explain it, but yet we do it anyways. We do it anyways. And when I say 95%, I mean 95%. I really, really, well, I've met very few people that don't cheat. I personally take pride in not cheating. I have not cheated on any test since junior year of high school. Something like that. That was when, we'll say, I became conscious. And then also I have one friend who also has a strong moral stance against cheating. Everyone else cheats. So, and then problem 3, we'll put it all together. We fear change. We want to take control, right? Like there's a strong biological need, we'll say, to, well, keep order, because anytime there's change, there's a risk. Every single time, every single hero's journey that you go on, every single opportunity that is created for you, there's also a risk involved. And our brains are very, very conservative. We don't like to take risks, because let's say you're in your nice little tent under your nice little shelter in the woods right before, society was established. If you walk outside, you take a risk, there could be a jaguar there, ready to eat you. There could be a snake, right? There could be all these animals. And it's like, what does our brain tell us? It tells us to not do anything. And that's probably why you don't want to look at the evil within yourself. It's like, because if you look at the evil within yourself, then you're going to realize that, wait a second, the person that I thought I was is not the person that I thought I was. And, well, That's jumping into the rabbit hole. That's Alice in Wonderland, taking the trip down, and that's also, taking the what is it, the blue pill in the Matrix? I think it's the blue pill or the red pill, one of the two. And it's not easy. It's not easy being a hero. 92% of people, they quit on their goals. It's like, of course. So Let's first say, right, because we know Anakin takes the wrong solution. Let's say, what is the proper solution? What do the Jedis tell him? And what do we sort of believe is the right way of doing this? Because life is hard. It's like, how do we handle this stuff? And Yoda gives him the advice. He says, train yourself to let go. And, well, that's the idea. So there are 2 things that Anakin needs to do, right? 2 things that he should do. And it seems pretty self-evident if you look at it deep enough. 1, give up control. 2, update the system, Right? So the first one we're going to talk about right now, give up control. Yoda says, train yourself to let go. And remember, when he left his mom also told him to let go. She told him, you can't stop the change no more than you could stop the sun from setting. I don't know where that is here. Right here. I don't want things to change, Anakin says, but you can't stop the change any more than you could stop the suns from setting. And again, right, that's the binary sunset idea. And, well, Anakin's going to have to struggle with that. So right now, we could say he was afraid of getting rid of his mother. His mother gave him the advice, let it go. And he says, no. He's now about to lose his wife. Yoda gives him the same advice, let it go. And he essentially says, no. What do you think is the right advice? To let it go. And the reason why is because you need to accept the change in life, right? Like we've established this. There's no reason to hold on. There's no reason to hold on because the unfortunate reality is you can't hold on. You just can't. You just can't do it. And it's one of those things, like the harder you try, the harder it is to actually do it. And that's a problem, right? That's a problem. And, well, this is I could give you exactly what the sort of meaning of this is, and this is a good way of looking at it. It's like, well, you imagine that we're operating in the system of, for Anakin, right? He's in a system of order, right? And there's chaos that's lurking, right? And this is the representation of the yin and the yang, right? Yin and the yang is there's the white and there's the black, and there's always the black within the white. And, well, right now, Anakin's happy with his order, right? But you could say there's a little black dot coming into his orderly life, and he's not okay with that. So, what does he do? He tries to establish more order. It's like you can't get rid of the chaos. You can't do it. And this gets into the second idea that you need to, so the second idea of the yin and the yang, and this is the recommendation from the Taoists, right? They say that you should be living on the border between order and chaos. You should not be living in order. You should not be living in chaos. You should be living on the border between the two. And that's the perfect idea. You imagine you're stuck in a dead-end job. What is a dead-end job? It's too much order, right? Too much stability and not enough realm to explore, right? What is growth? Growth is change. So really, if you're stuck at a dead-end job, then the answer should be add a little bit of chaos in there. And I don't mean add, throw in a few snakes and throw in a few, divorce papers and lawsuits. It's like, no, throw in a little potential, throw in a little risk, throw in a little growth. That's the problem that I see with business owners, right? The problem with business owners is they don't want to take any risks, right? So if you don't take any risks, then you're stuck in order. You have no ability to grow. You're not in chaos. You're not in the border between chaos. But if you want to, take too many risks, then you're probably screwed too. You have too much chaos. And, the answer seems to be if you hold on too tight, then, that's not the ideal way of living, right? The ideal way of living is in the border between order and chaos, and part of it is because literally you just can't stop it. You just can't stop the world from changing. You can't stop the suns from setting. You can't stop one sun from going down and the other one from going up. You need to grow. You need to, get out of your childhood, and then you need to mature, and then you need to become an adult, and then you die. It's like, okay, can't stop any of that. So why try? And that's giving up control. And then the second thing is update the system, right? Update the system. Yes, the Jedis are corrupt. Yes, the Jedis are flawed. Yes, he doesn't really understand it that well. But, that's his job, right? That's his job. He's the one who should fulfill the prophecy. He's the one who, is meant to be that he who can go into the past, go into the old representation of the culture, which is the representation of Yoda, understand him, and translate that to the world. Translate that to the next generation, something that Obi-Wan could not do. And, And he's also supposed to fix the corruption. It's like these are his jobs. That's the prophecy, right? Bring balance to the Force and destroy the Sith, right? And he just doesn't want to do it, right? He doesn't want to do it. But that is the archetypal story of a hero, right? That's the archetypal story of a hero. You have an old, dead culture that, well, clearly there's a problem there, right? You have an old, dead culture. And let's see if I can think of a good movie for it. It's Moana. It's Lion King. It's Star Wars 4, right? That's Luke's. That's literally exactly what Luke Skywalker represents. You have an old dead culture. You have a flawed culture. It's like, what's your job? Your job is to fix the culture, right? And also, maybe gain some wisdom, right? Maybe gain some wisdom along the way. Maybe be the person who's able to fix the culture well by undercovering the wisdom from the past. Because, well, maybe you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Right? Maybe all the wisdom of the world, or much of it, all of it doesn't have to be solved by you. Maybe some people have already solved it before, and you just haven't read their text, or you haven't understood their language. Maybe they're just Yoda, and all you need to do is uncover it and translate it in a language that we can understand it. And I am going to explain to you right now okay, I'll give it a little bit, but I'll explain to you that George Lucas, therefore, is the archetypal hero. So, we're going to get into Anakin's solution, right? What does Anakin do that, well, obviously he's not supposed to do, right? What is he doing when he decides to come to the dark side and reject the Jedi Order? Well, what he does is he says, okay, I am going to reject change, where Palpatine says, I'm going to keep the ones that you care about from dying, and then he reveals himself as the Sith, and Anakin knows this, right? He's come to this realization, and, well, what does he do? He reveals himself as the devil, essentially, and he says, I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to hide it, but I'm going to give you what you want. And that's all that really matters. I'm just going to give you what you want. And he says, know the power of the dark side, the power to save Padme. And that's it. So what is he offering him? He's offering him ultimate control and, well, also ultimate power, right? He's saying, I'm going to give you ultimate power so long as you serve me. So long as you serve me, right? So long as you essentially remain under me. You become Darth Vader, congratulations, but you're going to serve me. You could say that's the representation of maybe greed, potentially, right? It's like, okay, you could attain all the money in the world, you could be the head of the rat race, but at the same time, you're still subservient to one God, and that God is going to be greed. So now, I'm going to explain to you why George Lucas is a hero. George Lucas is a hero because he took the wisdom from the past and translated it into a language that we can understand. And what do I mean by wisdom of the past? I mean all of the archetypes, well, from all of the religious cultures. I just explained to you how, first of all, he represented the yin and the yang. That's a very Taoist idea. He also represented, I just told you, so the devil essentially just gave Anakin the deal to be the king of society, but also, well, be subservient to him. There's a story in Christianity where Jesus goes into the desert and he's tempted by the devil. He fasts for 40 days and he's tempted by the devil. And the devil says these words. He says, next, the devil took him, this is in the Gospel of Matthew. Next, the devil took him to the peak of the very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. Quote, I will give it all to you, he said, if you kneel down and worship me. Starting to see some parallels. Then Jesus says, get out of here, Satan, Jesus told him, for the scriptures say, you must worship the Lord your God and serve only him. It's the same story. It's the same story. It's the same exact story. If you replace the Lord your God with something like the Jedi Order or the natural flux of life or nature itself, then you have the same exact story. And that's why I think the George Lucas did such an incredible job here. And he said this explicitly. He said that Star Wars was partially his creation, partially his job to take the old wisdom from the past and turn it into something that people can understand. So really what he did was he took many of the biblical stories and turned them into people fighting with lightsabers and turning to the dark side. I'll give you some even more stories. I wrote them all down here. You ready? You have the three temptations, right? That's the story that I just told you. You have the virgin birth. That's Mary, right? Mother Mary. You have the prophecy. Jesus also had a prophecy. His prophecy was, I am going to die on the cross and take in all the sufferings of mankind. It's the same idea. I'm going to destroy the Sith and take upon all the sufferings of mankind. Are the same exact idea. There's the Garden of Eden, right? The Garden of Eden is Naboo, right? When Anakin goes to Naboo to live in his blissful paradise. You have Cain and Abel, when Obi-Wan fights Anakin, which we're going to get into at the end of this. It's like, that's exactly what happened. Brothers fighting against each other. You know, this is probably the most memorable scene in all of Star Wars for me. That's when Obi-Wan says, "You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you." And we could say that Obi-Wan is Abel and Anakin is Cain, and they fight to the death. And then there's also the idea of the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel is exactly what Palpatine builds, exactly what Palpatine and Darth Vader end up building. They build up this structure that is, supposed to unite all the world and take control of the entire world and essentially distance themselves from the good. So all of these are built into the Star Wars structure. And that's why George Lucas is the archetypal hero, because he takes these Christian structures, he takes the wisdom of the past, he takes the representation of Yoda, the old, muddled language that speaks in a completely different dialect, and he translated it into something that we can understand. And we still learn the lessons, right? We still learn the lessons of Star Wars, and that means we still learn the lessons of the Bible, yet it's just encoded in a different way. And I think that's quite beautiful. And maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what we need. There definitely are flaws in Christianity. I think we all know that. And I wouldn't even stand here and recommend that people become a Christian. I think, first of all, it's very individual, and I also think that people need structure, but maybe Christianity isn't the right structure. Maybe religion isn't the right structure, but maybe it is. Maybe it is. That's also the idea. And also, it definitely has the potential to become corrupt, right? There are all these flaws, but at the same time, I would recommend without a doubt to, understand the wisdom of the Bible, because I don't think anyone's going to make a logical argument that there isn't any wisdom from the Bible. It's like, that's the thing that's been holding up our civilization for the last 2,000 years, 1,500 about. And it's like, clearly there's wisdom there. Clearly there's a lot of stuff that's hidden in that text that is wise and, important and potentially lost. But if you just look at the Bible, if you just look at Christianity as something like Obi-Wan, something that's completely inadequate, and just make it essentially a straw man, and you just deny all the wisdom within it, it's like you're missing out something. And I think it's the same idea with all religions and all religious thought. It's like Buddha, maybe he didn't actually ascend to the 8th level of consciousness, but there's something there. So that's good. That's good for now. And then we move on, and so here's the rest of the plot, right? Here's the rest of the plot. Samuel Jackson, I can't associate Samuel Jackson's character with his character. I just think of him as Samuel Jackson. But he says, "I sense a great deal of confusion in you, young Skywalker," and he's right. But he tells Samuel Jackson, what's his name? No, whatever. He tells Samuel Jackson that Palpatine's the Sith, and he does the right thing, right? That's exactly what Anakin does. He does the right thing, but still confusion in him. So Samuel Jackson tells him to stay, and he's going to, well, take down Palpatine. Anakin's stuck in this, we'll say, well, he's at his choice, right? This is where the choice comes. And I think this is something that's super, super interesting. You have Anakin, he's sitting there, and he hears Palpatine's voice. And Palpatine's voice says, if the Jedi destroy me, any chance of saving her will be lost. And there's something really wise there. It says that the external pressures, we'll go with external pressures, right? The culture, your parents, biological, whatever. We'll go with culture, parents, and school. That's good for now. They start off as external pressures, but they end up becoming internal pressures. That you end up internalizing those things. And, well, that's a problem in and of itself, right? Well, you could say part of it's good, but part of that, you could say that's a real huge problem. It's like, if your parents tell you that you should get A's, it's like maybe one day you'll be sitting yourself and saying, maybe I should get A's, right? Maybe they don't need to tell you that anymore. And you could say maybe that's a good thing, right? But also, that's the idea of dogma. That's exactly what dogma is. It's like, well, propaganda is a culture telling you, do this, even though you don't want to do that, and it becomes an internal voice in your head. So, that's what happens. He's essentially talking to the devil, something like that, and he cries a little bit because obviously this is not an easy thing. You have the sunset in the background. It's like, of course you do, and he's contemplating this idea, right? This important idea. It's which spirit are you going to be possessed by? Which structure are you going to be possessed by? Because remember, we have this problem of we don't understand the whole world. We don't understand every part of ourselves, and we can't even pretend that we do. Because we haven't thought out everything. And well, if you have a structured way of thinking, then that's your way of interpreting the world. Here's a good way of looking at it. It's like, today I was playing a game with one of my friends, and in the middle of the game, my friend changed the rules. So I was gonna win, and I was feeling pretty happy with myself. It's like, all right, cool. The middle of the game, he changed the rules. He's like, no, I don't want to do this. We're going to switch it up a little bit. And we were playing with a bunch of people, so I really, he was kind of the authority figure. I couldn't really object, and he just sort of said, we're going to switch the rules. So now here's my question, right? And I lost because of it. And the question is, okay, I lost. What do I do about it, right? There are two ways of looking at it, very simply. One, you could look at that and say, well, it's just a game, right? It's just a game, and it really doesn't make that much of a difference in my life. You know what? It's okay. Let him win, right? Let him win. It's really not the biggest deal. And it's like, okay, that's one way of looking at it. In other words, it doesn't really change your conceptual structure of the world. It's just, okay, that's fine, right? Life is going to happen. Life sucks. There are problems. In that case, I couldn't change it. So it's like, okay, if you can't change it, just accept it and move on with your life. Or there were some people in the game that I talked to them after the game, and they were very resentful. That's path 2. They turn vengeful, they turn resentful, and you could say it's the little bubbling hate that exists inside of them. And they were pissed. They were pissed. Of course you don't want to lose a game. It's like a guess, of course. And we could say there were two structures, two different lenses in which to view the world. I could say maybe mine was the Jedi's and theirs was the dark side, because I ended up explaining to them like it's really just a game, and really there was no point of them doing that. But the idea is I adopted a habitual structure in which I viewed the world, and I said that's really not going to affect me. But for people, right, we could say what is the natural biological reaction to somebody changing the rules and altering the game? And it was kind of like cheating. It kind of was. So it's like, what is the natural reaction to that? I think it's probably to become vengeful. Right? I think it's probably to be angry, to be a little bit mad at the person who changed the rules, and also to be like, screw this. Like, why do I even want to play this game, you know? And of course I hate losing, but it's all about which structure you adopt. And that's a really strong idea. It's like, if you don't adopt a structure, then the structure is going to choose itself. You have a default structure that exists for everything. It's like, you don't take conscious control of your eating habits, your caveman instinct is going to take you over, right? You don't take conscious control over what career you want to choose, you're just going to go with the one from your parents, right? You're just going to go with the one that society wants you to go to. It's like, no matter what, you're always going to have to worry about the idea of the default structure, the default way of you looking at the world, in many cases, is wrong. And the answer to that is very simply, you have to first realize that it's wrong, second, take conscious control over that idea, and then third, act it out. It's like, none of that is easy. All three of those steps are incredibly, incredibly difficult. And, well, now I think you can imagine why people don't do it. So this is what happened with... So that when I say, first of all, which are you going to be possessed by? Which spirit are you going to be possessed by? Yoda or Palpatine, right? What I'm really saying is, which structure are you going to choose? And, well, you have to be possessed by one of them, because one of them is your default anyways. It's like, you don't go with anything, then you just end up as someone who's completely inadequate, and you're stuck with your flaws. Like, is that really the life that you want to live? And that's why heroes must go through something like a confrontation process. And, well, that's where we are now. We're at the confrontation process. And the most known thing about the confrontation process is it's not easy, and it's not supposed to be easy, because making a change in your life and making a change to, let's say, the cognitive structures in which you are placed with, that is not an easy thing. You're altering your freaking brain. So this is what Anakin must do, right? He must choose. Am I going to be possessed by Palpatine, or am I going to be possessed by Samuel L. Jackson? And I like how Palpatine really narrates everything. He tells him, he goes, you must choose, right? You must choose. And the question here is really the same question as Jesus at the top of the mountain. It's like, follow your impulses, or something like, stick to your guns, stick to your moral principles, and stick to the thing that you know which is right. And what does Anakin say? He says, I need him, right? He tells Samuel L. Jackson, don't kill him, I need him. And God, that's such a profound line, right? This is what he says right before he kills Samuel L. Jackson, right before he kills, let's say, his, well, mental image of the Jedi, or his belief in the Jedi. He kills off the good side of him. And he does that because, quote, he needs him. And God, there are so many things. First of all, he couldn't let go, right? He couldn't let go of the change because he says, I need him to save my wife, right? I need him to stop change from happening. You could say that's the denial of adulthood, right? That's Hakuna Matata. That's Hakuna Matata perfectly said. It's like, I need him because, well, I don't want to bear the suffering of the world, right? And that's what a hero's supposed to do. They're supposed to bear the suffering of the world. And he says, I can't. I can't let go of, well, the suffering that is the death of Padme, or just the flux of life. The second thing is, he's dependent now, right? That's a problem, right? Of course, you should pick a structure, but you shouldn't be dependent upon it, right? What is the definition of the word Israel, right? Israel is obviously a country, a very strong Jewish country, and it's a person in the Bible. A person in the Bible, he actually got into a wrestle with God, And now Israel is a representation of that person. He who wrestles with God. That's the translation of Israel. And that's the idea. It's like you should always be questioning your structure. You should always be fighting the golden dragon. You should always be, independent. You should always be your own person acting within a system. You shouldn't be your system. And Anakin says, I need him. I need him. And that's the problem, right? That's the problem. So, Sith takes over. Sith wins. Devil wins. You could say, just like Jesus, Anakin was tempted to, have all the world and all the things he's ever wanted, and he got it. He got it, and, it's not all the things he's ever wanted, but he was tricked. And what does he say? He says the words. He says, I will do whatever you ask. I will be your humble servant. I will be completely dependent on you, and I will follow the deal. And, the funny thing is, he said the same thing to Padme before. He told her, he said, I will do anything that you ask. Right? He says this to Padme when he's pleading to be in a relationship with her. He's pleading, and he says, I will do anything that you ask because, I'm dependent upon you. I need you. I can't let go of you. If I let go of you, then I will die. Then my life will descend into chaos. And I am so afraid of chaos. I am so afraid of, in this case, loss, that I am going to cling to you. And you see this in relationships all the time, right? Why is it, this is perfect, right? This is a perfect explanation. We always wonder, why is it that women will stay in relationships in which they are beaten, right? Domestic violence. Why do they stay in those relationships in the first place? And the answer is because they fear leaving so much that they're willing to take, the pain of the current relationship, the pain of security, the pain of, staying where you are. Because, the world is even scarier than that. And God, that's a crazy idea. It's the idea, better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. It's like better the suffering in which you are in the suffering in which you are experiencing now than the potential suffering that you could experience when you were in the future, and in which you go into chaos. And it's like, it's right, that's correct, but maybe the devil that you don't know is not as scary as you thought. Just maybe, Or maybe it's just not as... Maybe it's just more meaningful. Maybe that's what it is. It's like, maybe it is as scary as you thought. Maybe going into something like a hero's journey is a scary thing to undertake. It's like, you try to quit smoking. It's like, you're going to be hit with withdrawal symptoms. You will. And that is the definition of chaos. That is your body telling you, I want it back. I want these cigarettes back. But maybe that's better for you, right? Just maybe that's better for you. And it's like, maybe you got to go through a little bit of chaos to achieve the correct type of order. Because that's really what Anakin does here. Anakin says, to avoid chaos, I'm willing to take whatever order exists, whatever it is, right? Hakuna Matata, you think of something like blissful unconsciousness. You think about a drunk. You think about your average college student. You think about something like that, and you say, when they are in their waking moments, when they are not drunk, they're probably struggling with some sort of idea, whatever it is. And when they are drunk, when they are in this Hakuna Matata orderly land, things are going well. Even though they're leaving the world, even though they're escaping for just a little bit, for that time being, things are actually in order. And it might be a tyrannical order. It might be an evil order, right? The tyrannical order, it might be that. But we are so risk averse. We are so afraid of chaos that, well, we do it anyways.